The beeping of my son's heart monitor echoed through the hospital room as I clutched the denial letter from my parents' accountant. Outside, through the dreary hospital windows, I could see the ocean. The same ocean where my brother Marcus's new beach house was being built, funded by our parents' family emergency fund. "I'm sorry, Olivia," my father's message read. "The fund is depleted after Marcus's house. Tommy's surgery will have to wait. He's young, he'll bounce back." Bounce back. As if my 8-year-old son's congenital heart condition was just a scraped knee. I looked at Tommy, sleeping fitfully in his hospital bed. His chest rose and fell irregularly, each breath a reminder of the time we were running out of. The doctors had been clear. Without the surgery in the next month, his condition would deteriorate beyond repair. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from Marcus, sending photos of his beach house construction. "Check out the infinity pool," he wrote. "Mom and Dad really outdid themselves. $500,000 well spent." I fought back tears, remembering yesterday's conversation with my parents. $85,000 isn't that much, I had pleaded. It's literally life or death for Tommy. "We can't play favorites, Olivia," Mom had said, sipping her expensive wine. "We just gave Marcus his share. It wouldn't be fair to dip into our retirement now." "Fair?" I choked out. "You're comparing a luxury beach house to my son's heart surgery." "Marcus has worked hard," Dad had interjected. "He deserves this reward. Besides, can't you get a loan?" A loan. As if I hadn't already mortgaged my house, sold my car, and emptied my savings. As a single mother and teacher, I'd stretched every dollar, but it wasn't enough. The insurance covered only part of the specialized surgery Tommy needed. A soft knock at the hospital door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Dr. Rivera, Tommy's cardiologist. "How are his numbers today?" I asked, trying to sound strong. She checked his charts, her expression grave. "They're declining faster than we anticipated. Olivia, if we don't do the surgery within 3 weeks." She didn't need to finish. I knew what was at stake. My phone buzzed again, another message from Marcus. "Having the housewarming party next weekend. Dad's buying the yacht to dock here too." A yacht. While my son fought for his life. "Ms. Mitchell." A man in a crisp suit appeared at the door. "I'm James Wheeler, your grandfather's attorney. May I have a moment?" Grandpa George had passed away 2 months ago. I'd missed the funeral because Tommy had been in the hospital. "Your grandfather left specific instructions for me to check on you today," Mr. Wheeler said, pulling out a thick envelope. "He wanted me to verify if your parents had helped with Tommy's surgery." I shook my head, confusion mixing with grief. They refused, said they'd spent the family emergency fund on Marcus's beach house. Mr. Wheeler's expression hardened. "I see. Your grandfather suspected this might happen. That's why he made certain arrangements." He opened the envelope, revealing documents that made my hands shake. 2 years ago, your grandfather secretly established a medical trust for Tommy. He knew about the heart condition and your parents' priorities. The trust contains $2 million specifically for Tommy's medical care. I collapsed into the chair beside Tommy's bed. $2 million? Additionally, Mr. Wheeler continued, he left you controlling interest in the family company, 51% of the shares. Your parents and Marcus aren't aware of this yet. The official reading is tomorrow. My mind spun. The family company, the one my parents had used to fund their lavish gifts to Marcus, the one they claimed was too complex for me to understand. Your grandfather's note, Mr. Wheeler said, handing me a sealed envelope. He asked that you read it alone. After he left, I opened Grandpa's letter with trembling fingers. My dearest Olivia, I've watched your parents favor Marcus your entire life, but I stayed quiet, hoping they'd change. When they dismissed Tommy's condition while funding Marcus's extravagances, I knew I had to act. The company shares are your shield and sword. Use them wisely. The medical trust is your guarantee that Tommy will get the care he needs. Your parents and brother will learn about this tomorrow, but I wanted you to know first to be prepared for their reaction. Remember, true family protects its own. Love, Grandpa George. Tommy stirred in his bed, his eyes fluttering open. Mom, are you crying? I wiped my tears, managing a smile. Happy tears, baby. We're getting your surgery. Everything's going to be okay. My phone buzzed again. A message from my parents. Family meeting tomorrow at the lawyer's office. Mandatory attendance. I looked at their message, then at Tommy, then at the company documents in my hands. For years, I'd watched them favor Marcus, dismiss my needs, and now endanger my son's life. Tomorrow, they would learn that karma sometimes comes in the form of a grandfather's careful planning. I texted back one word, okay. The heart monitor kept beeping steadily, but now each beat felt less like a countdown and more like a drumbeat leading to tomorrow's reckoning. The law office lobby felt colder than Tommy's hospital room. My parents sat rigidly on one side, Marcus sprawled confidently on the other, all of them shooting questioning glances at my calm demeanor. Why is she here? Marcus whispered loudly to Mom. This is about the company's succession. Before anyone could respond, Mr. Wheeler entered, carrying the familiar thick folder of documents. Shall we begin? Dad straightened his tie. Just formalities, right? The company transfers to Marcus as discussed. Actually, Mr. Wheeler said, opening the folder, there have been some changes. The next 10 minutes rewritten my family's power dynamic. With each revelation, the color drained from their faces. Controlling shares to me, the medical trust for Tommy. Grandpa's explicit instructions about company management. This is impossible. Marcus jumped up. She doesn't know anything about business. Your sister has an MBA, Mr. Wheeler stated flatly. She's been running her own successful educational consulting firm for 5 years. Your grandfather was quite aware of her capabilities. My parents sat in stunned silence as Mr. Wheeler continued reading. The beach house funds would need to be repaid to the company. The yacht purchase was canceled. All major financial decisions now required my approval. Olivia, Mom finally spoke, her voice honey-sweet. Surely we can discuss this as a family? Like we discussed Tommy's surgery, I asked quietly, or Marcus's beach house? That was different, Dad protested. The beach house is an investment. And my son's life isn't. My voice remained calm, but my hands shook slightly. Yesterday you said you couldn't spare $85,000 for his surgery. Today I learned you approved another $200,000 for Marcus's yacht. Marcus leaned forward. Look, sis, maybe we can make a deal. You sign over the shares and we'll consider helping with Tommy's. The surgery is already scheduled, I interrupted. The trust covers everything. Tommy doesn't need your consideration anymore. You can't run the company, Dad said desperately. You don't understand our business relationships, our deals. You mean like the deal to sell the company's lakefront property to Marcus for 1/10 of its value? I pulled out another document. Grandpa kept excellent records. Their faces paled further. That deal had been their next gift to Marcus. The company isn't your personal piggy bank anymore, I continued. Things are going to change. You turn against your own family? Mom asked, tears welling up. Family? I laughed softly. Family would have saved my son's life before building a beach house. Family wouldn't have watched me mortgage my house while buying Marcus a yacht. Mr. Wheeler cleared his throat. There's more. The company audit reveals several questionable transactions. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I've arranged for a forensic accountant to review everything from the past 5 years. Any inappropriate personal expenses will need to be repaid. You do this to your own brother? Marcus sputtered. My brother? I turned to him. My brother who posted Instagram stories about his infinity pool while his nephew was in intensive care. That brother. The room fell silent except for the sound of my mother's quiet sobs. I have a board meeting to prepare for, I said, gathering my things. Mr. Wheeler will explain the new company policies. Any questions about repayment schedules can go through him. Wait. Dad called as I reached the door. What do you want? There must be something we can offer. I turned back one last time. What I wanted was parents who cared about their grandson's life as much as their son's beach view. What I wanted was a brother who thought about someone besides himself. What I got instead was a lesson in how money reveals people's true characters. The company will be ruined, Marcus threatened. No, I replied. It will be saved. From all of you. As I walked out, Mr. Wheeler handed me one final envelope. Another note from Grandpa. Olivia, by now they know. Remember, running a company isn't about power. It's about responsibility. You have both the compassion and strength to do what's right. Tommy will live, the company will thrive, and maybe, just maybe, they'll learn something about true family values. Love, Grandpa. I drove straight to the hospital, where Tommy was sitting up, coloring a picture of what looked like a superhero. Is everything okay, Mom? He asked, seeing my expression. Better than okay. I smiled, sitting beside him. How about after your surgery, we take that trip to Disney World you've been asking about? His eyes lit up. Really? But I thought we couldn't afford it. Things have changed, I said, helping him with his coloring. Sometimes life has a way of balancing things out. My phone buzzed with messages from my parents and Marcus, but I ignored them. Tomorrow, I'd start reviewing the company books. Tomorrow, I'd begin reshaping the family legacy. Tomorrow, I'd show them what real business leadership looks like. But today was for Tommy. Today was for watching my son color his superhero picture, his heart monitor beeping steadily, his future finally secure. 3 months after Tommy's successful surgery, I sat in what used to be my father's office, reviewing the latest company reports. The changes had been swift and significant. The forensic audit had uncovered years of personal expenses disguised as business costs, all benefiting Marcus and my parents. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Marcus, looking considerably less polished than usual. His designer clothes had been replaced by off-the-rack wear, and his usual smugness was gone. The real estate agent listed the beach house, he said, dropping into a chair. Happy now. I closed my laptop. The company's stock has risen 40% since the restructuring. Our employees received their first proper bonus in 5 years. So yes, I'm happy. Mom and Dad had to downsize their house, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. They're living in a regular neighborhood now, like common people. Like I've lived all my life? I raised an eyebrow. How horrifying for them. Before he could respond, my assistant Sarah buzzed in. Tommy's here for lunch, Mrs. Mitchell. Tommy bounded in, his cheeks pink with health, his surgery scar barely visible above his collar. Mom, I got an A on my science project. Marcus watched as I hugged Tommy, his expression unreadable. This was the nephew he'd barely acknowledged existed, too busy with his beach house plans to visit in the hospital. How are you feeling, buddy? Marcus asked awkwardly. Tommy looked at him with surprise. It was the first time his uncle had ever really spoken to him. Great. Dr. Rivera says my heart is super strong now. Mom and I are going hiking this weekend. Listen, Olivia, Marcus said after Tommy went to wait in the outer office. I've been thinking, maybe I was wrong about some things. Some things. Okay, a lot of things, he admitted. Watching Tommy today, he really could have died, couldn't he? I pulled out a file. These are his medical records from before the surgery. Read them. As Marcus read through the desperate prognosis we faced, his hands began to shake. I had no idea it was this serious. Mom and Dad said it was just a minor condition. They said what they needed to say to justify their choices, I replied. Just like they justified every advantage they gave you while telling me to work harder. I've had to work now, he said quietly. Actually work. My first real job starts next week. The entry-level position in our marketing department? He nodded. Sarah said I have to start at the bottom like everyone else. No special treatment. Sarah's good at her job. You should listen to her. A notification popped up on my computer. The company's charitable foundation had just funded another pediatric cardiac unit at the city hospital. The first one, named after Tommy, had already helped 3 families who couldn't afford surgery. The foundation, Marcus said, noticing the notification. That was a good idea. Even Dad admitted it. Dad admitted something. I couldn't hide my surprise. They've changed, Olivia. We all have. Losing everything. It makes you think. You haven't lost everything, I corrected him. You lost excess. There's a difference. He stood up, straightening his non-designer tie. My shift at marketing starts in 20 minutes. I should go. Marcus, I called as he reached the door. Tommy's having a birthday party next month. A small one, just family. Real family, you should come. His eyes widened slightly. Really? People can change, I said. Grandpa taught me that. After he left, I went to have lunch with Tommy in the small garden we created on the office building's roof. He was already setting up our usual picnic spot. Uncle Marcus looked different, Tommy observed, biting into his sandwich. People sometimes need to lose things to find better parts of themselves, I explained. Like how you lost your old job but found this cool company? I smiled at his simple wisdom, exactly like that. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. The neighborhood children played in our yard today. I found myself enjoying their laughter. I never heard children laugh at the old house. Too many walls, too much space, too much everything. I miss you and Tommy. Another message followed. Your father's teaching math at the community center. He says it reminds him of when he used to help you with homework before everything. I showed Tommy the messages. What do you think, buddy? Should we have Sunday dinner with Grandma and Grandpa this weekend? He thought for a moment. The doctor said my heart is stronger now. Maybe their hearts can get stronger too. Out of the mouths of babes. That evening, as Tommy and I walked through our modest but happy home, I found Grandpa's last letter again. The final line stood out. Money doesn't make a family, Olivia. Love does. Sometimes people forget that. Sometimes they need to lose the money to find the love again. Trust the process. Trust yourself. I texted my parents back. Sunday at 6. Bring dessert. Tommy wants to show you his science project. Sometimes karma doesn't just strike back, it strikes forward, clearing a path to something better than revenge, redemption. Tommy's laughter echoed through our home, stronger than any beeping hospital monitor, richer than any beach house view, more valuable than any company shares. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't just balance the scales. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it rebuilds what was broken, stronger than before. I'm sorry, but your kids just wouldn't know how to handle themselves in the wilderness. My sister-in-law, Amanda, declared, her voice dripping with fake concern during our weekly family dinner. This camping trip is for experienced outdoor people only. I watched as my children, Emma, 10, and Luke, 8, slumped in their chairs, their faces falling at yet another exclusion from family activities. My husband, Mark, was away on a business trip, leaving me to face his sister's constant undermining alone. My kids have been taking wilderness survival classes for the past year, I said calmly, cutting into my chicken. They're actually quite capable outdoors. Amanda laughed, that high-pitched sound that always set my teeth on edge. Oh, honey, a few classes don't make up for being city kids. We're talking about real camping here. No bathrooms, no electricity, just pure nature at Silver Pine Campground. I nearly choked on my water. Silver Pine Campground, of all the places they could have chosen. Besides, Amanda continued, we've already planned everything. It's going to be me, Jake, our kids, Mom and Dad, and Cousin Sarah's family. The perfect outdoor adventure. Perfect, indeed. I thought about the property deed sitting in my home office safe, the one my grandfather had left me 5 years ago. Silver Pine Campground had been his pride and joy, a sprawling 200-acre wilderness retreat that he built from nothing. When he passed, he left it to me, his only grandchild who shared his passion for conservation. Nobody in the family knew. Grandpa had made sure of that, knowing how they tried to take advantage. I kept the ownership quiet, letting the management company handle the day-to-day operations while I made improvements behind the scenes. Well, if you're sure we can't join, I trailed off, watching Amanda's satisfied smile grow wider. It's really for the best, she said, patting my hand condescendingly. We wouldn't want your kids to feel out of place. Or worse, get hurt because they don't know what they're doing. Later that night, as I tucked Emma and Luke into bed, I could see the hurt in their eyes. Mom, Emma whispered, we're not really city kids, are we? We know about camping. Remember all the stuff great-grandpa taught us? I smiled, remembering the weekends we'd spent with Grandpa at Silver Pine, learning about local plants, tracking animals, and understanding weather patterns. My kids probably knew more about outdoor survival than Amanda's phone-addicted teenagers. No, sweetie, you're not just city kids, I assured her. And I think it's time we showed the family exactly what you can do. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First, to the campground manager, Steve, who'd worked with my grandfather for 20 years. They're planning to camp next weekend, I told him. Let them make the reservation, but I have some special instructions. Then I called my friend Lisa, who ran the local wilderness school where my kids took classes. Remember that camping skills competition you mentioned? I think it's time we hosted it at Silver Pine. As the week progressed, Amanda's social media filled with posts about their upcoming exclusive family camping adventure. She made sure to tag everyone who was invited, probably so I wouldn't miss who was included. The day before their trip, she called me. Just checking if you're not too upset about missing the camping trip, she said, that false sweetness back in her voice. We could try to include you guys in the next family event. Maybe something more your speed, like a movie night. Don't worry about us, I replied. We've made our own plans for the weekend. I hope you all have a great time at Silver Pine. Oh, we will, she laughed. Jake's already packed all the luxury camping gear. It's going to be Instagram-worthy. Little did she know, Silver Pine has strict rules about authentic wilderness camping. No luxury RVs, no generators, no cell phone towers nearby. Just pure nature, exactly as Grandpa had intended. I'm sure it will be memorable, I said, ending the call before I could give anything away. That evening, I gathered Emma and Luke in the living room. How would you two like to show off your outdoor skills this weekend? Their eyes lit up as I explained the plan. The wilderness school competition would bring together kids from all over the state to demonstrate their survival skills. It would be held right next to the family campsite, though far enough away not to disturb them, unless, of course, they decided to investigate the commotion. Can we show Aunt Amanda our fire starting technique? Luke asked excitedly. The one great-grandpa taught us. And what about our shelter building? Emma added. We've been practicing. I have them both feeling proud of their enthusiasm despite all the times they've been excluded and underestimated. You can show them everything you've learned. But remember, we're not doing this to prove anything to them. We're doing it because we love the outdoors, just like Great-Grandpa did. As I tucked them in that night, I looked at the photo on their wall. My grandfather standing at the entrance to Silver Pine Campground, his arms around a younger Emma and Luke. He would have loved to see what was about to unfold. Tomorrow, Amanda would learn that her city kid cousins weren't quite what she thought. And maybe, just maybe, she'd learn something about judging people based on her own narrow assumptions. I pulled out the property deed one last time, running my fingers over my grandfather's signature. You were right, Grandpa, I whispered. Sometimes the best lessons are learned outdoors. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect camping weather. I watched from my office window as a line of cars pulled into Silver Pine Campground, recognizing Amanda's luxury SUV leading the convoy. Steve had texted me earlier, confirming they'd arrived to check in. Ma'am, he messaged, your sister-in-law just threw quite a fit about the no RV policy. Said something about being promised premium spots with hookups. I smiled, imagining Amanda's face when she realized her glamping plans weren't going to work out. Just follow standard procedure, Steve. No exceptions. Meanwhile, Emma and Luke were helping Lisa and the other instructors set up the wilderness competition course. We'd arrived at dawn through the private access road, staying out of sight from the main camping areas. The kids could barely contain their excitement. Mom, Emma called out, waving from where she was marking the fire starting station. We can hear Aunt Amanda from here. She's really loud. Indeed, Amanda's voice carried across the morning air. What do you mean we can't use generators? How am I supposed to charge my phone? This is ridiculous. I walked over to where Lisa was organizing the participants. 20 kids from various wilderness schools had shown up, all eager to demonstrate their skills. Emma and Luke fit right in, already chatting with their fellow competitors about different knot-tying techniques. Your kids are natural leaders, Lisa commented, watching them help younger participants practice. Just like their great-grandfather, he would have loved this. Around mid-morning, we heard the first sounds of the family settling into their campsite. Through the trees, I could see them struggling with their tents, obviously unused to actual camping. Amanda's teenagers sat on their phones, trying to find non-existent signals, while their father, Jake, attempted to start a fire with lighter fluid, strictly against campground rules. Fire hazard, Steve called out, confiscating the lighter fluid. You'll have to do it the traditional way. This is impossible. Amanda's voice rang out. How do people live like this? That's when we started the competition. The sound of drums, traditional wilderness school signals, echoed through the trees. I saw heads turning at the family campsite, curiosity piqued. Welcome to the first annual Silver Pine Wilderness Challenge, Lisa announced through a battery-powered megaphone. Competitors will demonstrate essential outdoor survival skills in honor of the campground's founder. I watched as my children lined up with the other participants. They looked confident, prepared, and absolutely in their element. Emma had her hair braided back practically, wearing the hiking boots Grandpa had given her for her last birthday. Luke stood tall in his wilderness school vest, covered in well-earned merit badges. The first challenge was shelter building. Teens have 30 minutes to construct a weather-resistant shelter using only natural materials. I noticed movement at the family campsite. People were wandering over to watch. Mom, Sarah's youngest, whispered loudly, "Those kids are building better tents than ours." Emma and Luke worked seamlessly with their team, using techniques they perfected through countless practice sessions. Their shelter took shape quickly, sturdy, well-designed, and completely weatherproof. Is that Emma and Luke? I heard my mother-in-law's surprised voice. What are they doing here? The next challenge was fire starting, using traditional methods only. Luke stepped up confidently, demonstrating the bow drill technique Grandpa had taught him. Within minutes, he had a small flame going, nurturing it carefully into a proper campfire. But they're city kids. Amanda's voice carried across the clearing. How do they know how to do this? I finally turned to acknowledge the growing crowd from our family campsite. They're not just city kids, I said calmly. They're their great-grandfather's grandchildren, and they've been learning from the best. What do you mean? Amanda demanded, her face flushed with either embarrassment or anger, possibly both. Before I could answer, Steve approached with his clipboard. Ma'am, he said to Amanda, I need to speak with the property owner about your multiple violations of campground rules. Do you know where I can find her? All eyes turned to me as I raised my hand. That would be me. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda's mouth opened and closed several times, no words coming out. My mother-in-law grabbed her husband's arm for support. The teenagers finally looked up from their phones. You own Silver Pine. Amanda finally managed to sputter. Grandpa left it to me 5 years ago, I explained, pulling out a copy of the deed I brought along. Just in case. He knew how much the kids and I loved it here. How much we respected the land and understood true camping. But why didn't you say anything when I was planning this trip? Amanda's voice had lost its usual condescending tone. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly, or would you have assumed I was lying, just like you assumed my kids couldn't handle the outdoors? In the background, Emma and Luke's team was being awarded first place for the shelter building competition. My children beamed with pride, their accomplishments speaking louder than any argument I could make. I think my father-in-law said slowly, we all owe you and the kids an apology. Amanda looked like she swallowed something sour, but nodded reluctantly. We shouldn't have excluded you, she admitted, or made assumptions about the kids. I watched as my children accepted their awards, standing tall and confident in front of everyone. They'd proven themselves not because they needed to, but because they loved what they were doing, just like Grandpa had always taught them. The competition continues tomorrow, I said to the family. You're welcome to watch. And maybe, I added with a small smile, the kids could teach you a thing or two about real camping. As the family walked back to their campsite, looking significantly humbled, I heard Luke call out, Hey, Aunt Amanda. Want us to show you how to start a fire without lighter fluid? Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above and showing your true worth. Grandpa had known that all along. The rest of the weekend unfolded in ways I never expected. By Saturday evening, our formerly divided family had transformed into something entirely different. Emma and Luke, initially excluded for being city kids, were now the campsite celebrities. Like this, Aunt Amanda, Emma demonstrated patiently, showing her aunt how to identify edible berries during the foraging competition. Great-grandpa taught us that these darker ones are sweeter. Amanda, her designer camping outfit now legitimately dirty, actually listened. The condescension had faded from her voice, replaced by genuine interest. Your grandfather really taught you all this? Mom made sure we kept learning after he passed away. Emma explained, carefully placing berries in her competition basket. We come here almost every weekend to practice. Meanwhile, Luke had drawn a crowd of his cousins, demonstrating how to read weather patterns from cloud formations. Even Amanda's teenagers had put down their phones, fascinated by their younger cousin's knowledge. That's why we never needed weather apps out here, Luke explained proudly. Nature tells you everything you need to know if you pay attention. I watched from a distance, letting my children have their moment. Steve appeared beside me, clipboard in hand. Just like your grandfather, he said quietly. He'd be proud, seeing them teach others, not just show off their skills. He was right. This weekend had become about more than just proving Amanda wrong. It was about honoring Grandpa's legacy, his belief that nature could bring people together and teach them what really mattered. That evening, as both families gathered around a properly built campfire, thanks to Luke's instruction, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The barriers of city kids versus outdoor people had dissolved. I think we've learned something important this weekend, my father-in-law said, looking around the circle. And not just about camping. Amanda, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I owe all of you an apology, she admitted, looking at my children and then at me. I've been difficult, not just about this camping trip, but about a lot of things. My kids, showing wisdom beyond their years, simply nodded. They'd already moved past the hurt, focused instead on sharing their knowledge and passion for the outdoors. Maybe, Amanda continued, we could make this a regular thing. With all of us, the kids could teach us more, and we could actually learn to do this properly. I thought about Grandpa, about how he'd always said Silver Pine was meant to bring families together. I think that could be arranged, I replied with a smile. As the stars came out, we sat around the campfire, telling stories about Grandpa. I shared memories of him teaching me about the land, and for the first time, the family listened without judgment or interruption. That's why he left you the campground, my mother-in-law realized. You understood what it meant to him. The next morning, as the families packed up to leave, there was none of the usual rush to escape back to civilization. Instead, people took their time, appreciating the morning birdsong and crisp air. Amanda approached me as I supervised the competition's cleanup. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for this weekend, but for showing me what I've been missing by being so judgmental. I nodded, accepting her words for what they were, a beginning. Mark called that evening after everyone had left. Amanda called me, he said, sounding amazed. She actually apologized. What exactly happened out there? I looked at Emma and Luke, curled up on the couch reading their wilderness guides, already planning for the next competition. Let's just say your sister finally learned to see beyond her own assumptions. And the campground, he asked. Why didn't you ever tell me? Some things, I replied, thinking of Grandpa's wisdom, need to be shown, not told. As I hung up, I walked to my office and looked at the property deed again. But this time, I didn't see it as proof of ownership or a tool for revenge. Instead, I saw it as Grandpa had intended, a means of bringing family together, teaching important lessons, and preserving something precious for future generations. Emma and Luke had already started planning activities for the next family camping weekend. Their cousins had been texting them nonstop, eager to learn more wilderness skills. Even Amanda had signed up for some basic outdoor training courses. Sometimes the best victories aren't about proving others wrong but helping them see what's right. Grandpa had known that all along, and now, thanks to a weekend of real camping, so did everyone else. The wilderness competition became a monthly event at Silver Pine, with our family among its most enthusiastic participants. And every time I saw Amanda struggling to start a fire the proper way or helping her teenagers identify edible plants, I smiled, knowing that some of life's best lessons really do happen outdoors. My daughter Emma's face crumpled as she held out her iPad, showing me the stream of photos and videos from my sister-in-law Melissa's Instagram stories. There they all were, my nieces and nephews, my in-laws, even family friends, gathered around my nephew Tyler as he blew out his birthday candles. The party we'd been told was canceled due to illness was in full swing. I don't understand, Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Her brother Max, only 6, peered over her shoulder, his usual cheerful expression clouded with confusion. Everyone looks fine. They're all having fun without us. I pulled both my children close, trying to hide my own shock and anger. Just hours ago, Melissa had sent that text. Hey Sarah, really sorry, but we've got a stomach bug going around. Having to cancel Tyler's party. We'll reschedule soon. I'd spent the afternoon consoling my kids, who had been looking forward to celebrating their cousin's birthday for weeks. They even made him special cards. But there was Melissa, perfectly healthy, filming as Tyler opened presents. My mother-in-law, Susan, beamed in the background, helping him with the ribbons. Everyone was there. Everyone except us. Maybe, I started struggling to find the right words to explain this to my children without breaking their hearts further. But how do you explain to kids that their own family deliberately excluded them? The signs had been there for years, if I was honest. Little comments from Melissa about how my children were different from their cousins. The way she pulled her kids away when mine tried to play with them at family gatherings. The constant comparisons, her children's private school achievements versus my kids' public school education, their expensive extracurriculars versus our modest activities. My husband, David, Melissa's brother, had always told me to ignore it. That's just how Melissa is, he'd say. She's always been competitive. But this wasn't competition. This was cruelty. I scrolled through more photos, my anger building. There was Tyler opening the exact gift we had planned to give him. A deluxe Eligio set he'd been wanting. Somehow, Melissa had found out what we were getting and bought it herself. In her caption she wrote, "Only the best for my perfect boy. # best mom ever." The timestamp caught my eye. These photos were posted just minutes after she had texted me about canceling. She hadn't even tried to hide it. She wanted us to see. She wanted my children to know they weren't welcome. "Why don't you two go play in the backyard for a bit?" I suggested, forcing a smile. "I need to make a phone call." Once they were out of earshot, I called David at work. Had he seen Melissa's Instagram? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm in meetings all day," he replied, distracted. "What's going on?" As I explained, his silence grew heavier. "That can't be right," he finally said. "There must be some mistake. Melissa wouldn't." "Look at the photos, David. Look at the timestamps. She lied to us. She excluded your children from their cousin's birthday party and made sure they knew about it." More silence. "Then, I'll talk to her." "No," I said firmly. "This time, I'm handling it." I hung up and went to check on the kids. They were sitting on the swing set, unusually quiet. Emma was showing Max something on the iPad again. More party photos. My heart ached watching them try to process this rejection. But as I observed them, I noticed something in the background of one of the photos that made me pause. Behind the cake and the celebrating family, partially visible on the wall, was my father-in-law's prized collection of family photos. And there, clear as day, was something that made my blood run cold. I zoomed in, hardly daring to believe what I was seeing. There, in a simple silver frame, was a photograph I recognized. But it had been altered. The original was from last Christmas, showing all the grandchildren together. But in this version, Emma and Max had been edited out. They hadn't just excluded my children from the party. They'd been systematically erasing them from the family history. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a birthday party. This was about something much bigger, something that had been building for years. And as I stood there, watching my children try to understand why their family didn't want them, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. It was time to make a call that would unravel everything Melissa had built her perfect family image around. Because what she didn't know was that I had recently discovered something that would turn her carefully constructed world upside down. She thought she could hurt my children and get away with it. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I stared at my father-in-law's phone number for a long moment before dialing. Robert had always been different from the rest of them. Quieter, more observant. He had never joined in Melissa's subtle cruelty, but he hadn't stopped it either. Until now, I hadn't understood why. "Sarah?" His voice was hesitant when he answered. "I was hoping you'd call." "The photos on your wall, Robert," I said quietly. "The edited ones. How long has this been going on?" There was a long pause. "Come to my office tomorrow morning. There's something you need to see." The next day, after dropping the kids off at school, I drove to the small accounting firm where Robert had worked for 40 years. His office was cluttered but organized, every file in its place. He closed the door behind me and pulled out a thick folder from his bottom drawer. "I've been keeping records," he said, his voice heavy. "Ever since Melissa started, well, since things changed after Susan's mother died." He spread the contents across his desk, bank statements, legal documents, and a series of letters that made my hands shake as I read them. The truth about Melissa's perfect life, about why she was so desperate to push my children out of the family picture, was laid bare in black and white. The inheritance, I breathed, the pieces clicking into place. It wasn't just money, was it? Robert shook his head. My mother-in-law left specific instructions. The family estate, the trust fund. It's all to be divided equally among the grandchildren when they turn 21. All the grandchildren. And Melissa doesn't want to share. I finished, understanding dawning. She's been trying to force us out before Emma comes of age. It's worse than that, Robert said, pulling out another document. Melissa's been embezzling from the trust, using the money for her perfect lifestyle. If there's an audit when Emma turns 21, she'll go to jail. I finished. The expensive private schools, the lavish parties, the constant social media posts about her wonderful life. It was all built on stolen money. Money that partially belonged to my children. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked. Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Because I saw Emma's face yesterday through the window at the party. She looked just like her grandmother, Susan's mother. The same kind eyes, the same gentle spirit. I can't watch Melissa hurt those kids anymore." I gathered the documents with trembling hands. "What do you want me to do?" "What you think is right," he replied. But Sarah, be careful. Melissa won't take this well. On my way home, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. Hope the kids aren't too disappointed about missing the party. Maybe next time. The fake sweetness made my stomach turn. I thought about Emma and Max, how they cried themselves to sleep last night, believing their family didn't love them. I thought about all the other slights over the years, the lost birthday invitations, the forgotten Christmas gifts, the constant exclusion. When I got home, I found an email from Robert containing scanned copies of everything he'd shown me, along with one more document, his sworn statement about Melissa's financial manipulation. I sat down at my computer and began composing 2 emails. The first was to our family lawyer, attaching all the evidence and requesting an immediate audit of the trust fund. The second was to Melissa. Dear Melissa, I wrote, thank you for sharing those lovely party photos. I particularly enjoyed seeing Dad's photo wall in the background. Interesting editing choice, removing Emma and Max. I wonder what the trust fund administrators would think about that and about some other creative editing you've been doing with the accounts. I attached a single bank statement showing a large unauthorized transfer from the trust to her personal account. Would you like to explain this to the family, or should I? My finger hovered over the send button. This would change everything. There would be no going back, no maintaining the facade of family harmony. But then I remembered Emma's tears, Max's confusion, years of watching my children being treated as less than. I hit send. Melissa's response was immediate and explosive. My phone started ringing seconds later, but I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I went outside where Emma and Max were playing and pulled them into a tight hug. Things are going to be different now, I promised them. No more canceled parties, no more lies. How do you know? Emma asked, her eyes still holding traces of yesterday's hurt. Because sometimes, I said, watching my phone light up with increasingly frantic messages from Melissa. The truth has a way of fixing things that kindness couldn't. I looked at my buzzing phone one last time before turning it off. Tomorrow would bring chaos, family drama, legal meetings, hard conversations. But for now, I just held my children close, knowing that finally, after all these years, justice was coming, and Melissa's perfect family portrait was about to get a reality check. The fallout was immediate and devastating. By morning, Melissa had rallied the family against me, sending a barrage of angry messages, calling me spiteful and jealous. My mother-in-law, Susan, left a tearful voicemail about how I was tearing the family apart. But the bank statements and trust fund documents spoke louder than their accusations. David, my husband, sat stunned at our kitchen table as I showed him everything his father had given me. All this time, he whispered, looking at the evidence of his sister's theft. All those times she made us feel like we weren't good enough, like our kids weren't good enough. She was stealing from them. Not just stealing, I corrected gently. She was trying to push them out completely. The edited photos, the constant exclusion. She wanted to erase any proof they were part of the family before Emma turned 21. A family meeting was called at Robert's insistence. I'll never forget walking into their house that evening, Emma and Max holding my hands tightly. Melissa sat at the dining room table, her perfect makeup unable to hide her panic. Susan hovered nearby, shooting me accusatory glances. How dare you threaten my daughter? Susan began, but Robert cut her off. Show them, Melissa, he said quietly. Show them what you did with the trust fund money. The truth spilled out like a dam breaking. Years of unauthorized withdrawals, manipulated accounts, how to maintain her illusion of perfection. The private schools, the expensive vacations, the lavish parties, all paid for with money that belonged to all the grandchildren, including Emma and Max. I deserved it, Melissa finally snapped, her carefully constructed facade cracking. My children deserve the best. Not like, she glanced dismissively at Emma and Max. Not like what? I challenged, my voice steady. Not like my children, the ones you've been trying to erase. That's when Emma stepped forward, pulling something from her backpack. It was her handmade birthday card for Tyler, decorated with careful drawings and loving messages from both her and Max. We just wanted to be part of the family, she said softly, placing it on the table. The simple gesture hit harder than any accusation. Melissa's face crumpled. For the first time, I saw past her perfect mask to the insecurity beneath. She'd spent so long building this image of superiority, of special status, that she couldn't bear the thought of sharing it. The lawyers arrived the next day, The trust fund was frozen pending investigation. Melissa's carefully curated social media went silent. No more perfect family photos, no more elaborate parties, no more carefully edited reality. Tyler's rescheduled birthday party was held 2 weeks later, a simple celebration this time, with no expensive decorations or catered food. But Emma and Max were there, watching their cousin open their handmade card with genuine joy. Robert took a new family photo, one that included everyone, and hung it prominently on the wall. Susan still struggles to accept the change in family dynamics, but she's trying. David has found his voice, standing up to his sister's attempts at manipulation. And Melissa? She's been ordered to repay everything she took from the trust fund. Her perfect facade has cracked, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. Last week, Emma came home from school excited about a playdate with her cousins, the first one they'd ever been invited to. As I watched them play together, laughing and unguarded, I realized that sometimes it takes breaking something to fix it properly. The family isn't perfect anymore, but it's real, and my children finally have the place in it they always deserved. Mom, Emma said that evening, snuggled up next to me on the couch, I'm glad you didn't let them make us disappear. I hugged her close, thinking of that edited family photo that had started it all. Some people are worth fighting for, I told her. And you and Max, you're worth everything. The truth had cost us the illusion of a perfect family, but it had given us something better. A chance at a genuine one, and watching my children finally being treated as equals, finally being included and loved, I knew it had been worth every difficult moment. Sometimes the biggest act of love isn't maintaining peace. It's being brave enough to shatter it when that peace is built on lies. My children would grow up knowing that, and knowing that they were never the ones who needed to be edited out of the picture. They were the ones who made it complete. I stared at my phone screen, unable to look away from the photos flooding my Facebook feed. There they were, my in-laws, my husband's siblings, their kids, even distant cousins, all smiling on a pristine white beach in Florida. The matching family t-shirts they wore made my stomach turn. Anderson Family Beach Trip 2024. Apparently, being in Anderson for the past 8 years wasn't enough to earn an invitation. Too difficult to plan around, my mother-in-law had told others when asked about our absence. Between Emma's soccer practice and Lucy's dance recitals, they're just too high maintenance. The irony? Both activities had ended weeks ago. My name is Kate Anderson, and at 34, I've spent nearly a decade trying to fit into my husband's family's idea of perfect. Mike, my husband, was at work when I discovered the secret vacation, probably unaware that his entire family was living it up in Florida without us. I scroll through more photos. My nieces building sandcastles, family dinners at oceanfront restaurants, sunset cruises where everyone raised their glasses in celebration. Each image felt like a deliberate reminder of our exclusion. Our daughters, Emma, 8, and Lucy, 6, would have loved every minute of it. The group chat I wasn't supposed to see, accidentally shared by my teenage niece, revealed the truth. They'd been planning this for months. My mother-in-law, Sandra, had orchestrated everything, making sure to schedule around everyone's commitments, everyone except us. We can't risk Kate making everything complicated again, she'd written. Remember last Christmas when she insisted on leaving early because Lucy wasn't feeling well? Or Easter when Emma had a soccer tournament? It's easier this way. I put my phone down and walked to our living room window. Outside, Emma and Lucy played in the sprinkler, their laughter carrying through the glass. They had no idea their cousins, whom they adored, were making memories without them. The front door opened and Mike walked in, loosening his tie. One look at my face, and he knew something was wrong. "Kate, what happened?" I handed him my phone. His expression darkened as he scrolled through the photos. They didn't. Mom promised she'd stop doing this. Doing what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. This wasn't the first time Sandra had organized family events without us. There was last year's Christmas brunch we'd only learned about through photos. The 4th of July barbecue we'd been forgotten to be invited to. Each time there was some excuse. Miscommunication, or the assumption that we'd be too busy. Mike ran a hand through his hair, a habit he'd had since childhood. "I'll call Mom right now. This isn't okay." "Don't," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "I have a better idea." For years, I tried to accommodate Sandra's demands, rearranging our schedule, apologizing for imagined offenses, trying to prove we weren't the difficult ones she claimed we were. But as I watched my girls playing outside, blissfully unaware of their grandmother's manipulations, something shifted inside me. I picked up my phone and started making calls, first to my sister, then to my best friend Sarah, and finally to my parents. Within an hour, I had a plan. "What are you doing?" Mike asked, watching me book flights on my laptop. "Planning our own vacation," I replied. "One that doesn't require your mother's approval." My sister had a beach house in North Carolina she rarely used. My parents were eager to spend time with their granddaughters. Sarah and her kids were always up for an adventure. Within days, we had our own family trip planned, one filled with people who actually wanted us around. 3 days into the Anderson family vacation, Sandra's carefully curated Facebook posts started showing cracks. Photos of empty chairs at family dinners. Posts about how some people were missing from their traditional beach games. My nieces and nephews commenting that they missed playing with Emma and Lucy. That's when the texts started. First, from my sister-in-law Jenny. "The kids keep asking where Emma and Lucy are. Mom's having a hard time explaining." Then from Mike's brother Tom. "This doesn't feel right without you guys. Mom messed up." Finally from Sandra herself. "I hope you're not upset about the vacation. You know how busy you are with the girls' activities. We were just trying to make it easier for everyone." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I posted our own photos. Emma and Lucy building sandcastles with their cousins from my side of the family, sunset picnics with people who celebrated our kids' activities instead of seeing them as inconveniences, family game nights where no one was labeled too difficult. Having the best time with family who love us exactly as we are. I captioned one photo. It wasn't petty. It was honest. The responses were immediate. Likes and comments poured in, many from extended Anderson family members who hadn't even known we'd been excluded. Sandra's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. "Why aren't Emma and Lucy here?" my young niece had apparently asked during their fancy beach dinner. "They're way more fun than this." The video of her question, accidentally posted by my sister-in-law and quickly deleted, spoke volumes. Mike supported me completely. "Maybe it's time everyone saw Mom's behavior for what it is," he said, watching our girls chase waves with their cousins from my side of the family. "We're not the problem here." As we sat on the beach that evening, watching the sunset with people who genuinely wanted to be with us, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're given. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's living well with people who love you without conditions. Sandra's perfectly orchestrated beach vacation started falling apart on day 5. I knew because the frantic messages wouldn't stop coming, each one more desperate than the last. "The kids are miserable," Jenny wrote. "They keep watching Emma and Lucy's beach videos on repeat. Mom's trying to organize another family photo, but half the cousins are refusing unless all the family is here," Tom added. But it was the video my teenage niece Olivia accidentally shared in the family group chat that really captured the meltdown. In it, Sandra stood in their beachfront rental's kitchen, face flushed with frustration as my youngest niece, Madison, threw a spectacular tantrum. "I want to play with Emma and Lucy," Madison screamed, her face tear-stained. "Their vacation looks more fun. They have ice cream for breakfast." They didn't, of course. It was just frozen yogurt. But watching Sandra try to explain why excluding her other grandchildren was for the best made me realize how deep this problem ran. Meanwhile, our impromptu North Carolina beach trip was everything a family vacation should be. My parents taught the girls how to fly kites on the windy shore. Sarah's kids introduced Emma and Lucy to boogie boarding, leading to hours of delighted squeals as they rode the waves. No one complained when Lucy wanted to stop and examine every seashell or when Emma spent an hour building an elaborate sandcastle kingdom. "This is how family should be," Mike said one evening, watching the sunset with his arm around me. The kids were having a dance party on the beach with my sister, their shadows long in the fading light. That's when Sandra called him. I could hear her voice through the speaker, high-pitched and anxious. "Michael, this vacation is a disaster. The kids are impossible to handle. Tom and Jenny aren't speaking to each other, and your father's back is acting up. We need you here." Mike put the phone on speaker and squeezed my hand. "No, Mom, what you need is to understand that family isn't about perfect photos and controlled chaos. It's about acceptance and love." "Of course I love you," Sandra protested. "That's why I planned this wonderful trip." For everyone except us, Mike interrupted. You excluded my wife and daughters because they don't fit your idea of perfect. Because Kate lets the girls be children instead of props in your perfect family portrait. The silence on the other end was deafening. But Kate's always so particular, Sandra finally said. The girls have so many activities and she insists on their routines. You mean she's a good mother? Mike's voice was firm. She supports our daughters' interests and makes sure they're healthy and happy. Yes, she does. And I'm grateful for it. I felt tears welling up in my eyes as Mike continued. Look at your perfect vacation, Mom. Is anyone actually having fun? Because from what I'm seeing and hearing, it looks like a carefully orchestrated photo shoot where everyone's miserable. As if on cue, we heard Madison's voice in the background. I hate this stupid beach. I want to go to Lucy and Emma's beach. Sandra sighed heavily. I just wanted to control everything, Mike finished. But you can't. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you might actually get to know your grandchildren for who they are, not who you want them to be. After he hung up, we sat in silence for a moment, watching the waves crash against the shore. The sound of children's laughter drifted over from where they were roasting marshmallows with my parents. You know she's going to make this about her, I said softly. She'll play the victim. Mike nodded. Probably. But for the first time, I don't care. Look at our girls, Kate. Look how happy they are with people who love them unconditionally. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Sandra had posted a long, melodramatic message about family rifts and misunderstandings, carefully casting herself as the wounded matriarch. But the comments weren't quite what she expected. Couldn't help but notice half your grandchildren are missing from this perfect family vacation, one relative wrote. Those sweet girls and their mother deserve better, another added. Even Jenny broke ranks. Maybe if we'd included everyone from the start, this vacation wouldn't be such a disaster. By midday, Sandra's post was deleted, replaced by a carefully worded apology sent to our private messages. Perhaps I was too hasty in my planning, she wrote. We all miss you. But it was too late. We were making our own memories, creating our own traditions with people who saw us for who we were. Emma and Lucy were thriving, surrounded by love that didn't come with conditions or expectations. That evening, as we watched the girls perform a beachside talent show with their cousins, complete with seashell costumes and sandy choreography, Mike's phone buzzed with a text from his father. Your mother's realizing what she's lost, it read. The vacation ends tomorrow, but I think the real changes are just beginning. Mike showed me the message, then looked at our daughters, who were now taking elaborate bows while everyone cheered. Think we should give her another chance? He asked. I watched Lucy tackle her cousin in a hug while Emma directed everyone into a grand final pose. Maybe, I said. But on our terms this time, no more perfect family illusions. He nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. Because sometimes it takes losing something to realize its true value, and sometimes it takes standing your ground to earn genuine respect. The aftermath of the dueling beach vacations rippled through the family like waves hitting the shore. When we returned home, social media was flooded with two very different stories. Sandra's carefully curated photos of forced smiles and matching outfits, and our candid shots of genuine joy and messy, sandy adventures. Mom's not handling the comparison well, Jenny told Mike over coffee a week after everyone returned. She'd driven over specifically to talk about the family fallout. Everyone keeps asking why Emma and Lucy weren't there. She's running out of excuses. I was in the kitchen, pretending not to listen while making lunch for the girls, but I could hear the strain in Jenny's voice. You know what Madison did? She took all the family vacation photos off the fridge and replaced them with printouts from your beach trip. Said she wants to go to the fun beach next time. Mike's response was measured. Maybe that's exactly what Mom needs to see. The real turning point came during the monthly family dinner. Usually, these were held at Sandra's house, where she could control every detail. But this time, several family members coincidentally couldn't make it to her house, suggesting we meet at a restaurant instead. Sandra arrived last, her usually composed self showing slight cracks. Her eyes widened when she saw Emma and Lucy already settled in, showing their cousin seashells from our trip. Oh, she said, her voice tight. I didn't realize everyone was already here. We didn't want anyone to feel too difficult to plan around, I said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. Her face flushed. Throughout dinner, she watched as her grandchildren gravitated toward Emma and Lucy, begging to hear stories about their beach adventures. Even the adults seemed more relaxed, sharing their own childhood beach trip memories. "Remember when we used to just play in the sand for hours?" Tom reminisced. "No schedules, no matching outfits, just fun." Sandra sat silently, pushing food around her plate as her perfect family dynamic crumbled in the face of genuine connection. Finally, as dessert was being served, she spoke up. "I may have made a mistake." The table fell quiet. Sandra Anderson didn't admit mistakes. "The beach trip. I thought I was organizing the perfect family vacation. But looking at your photos, seeing how much fun you all had." She paused, uncharacteristically struggling for words. "I realized perhaps I've been focusing on the wrong things." Emma, innocent and direct as only an 8-year-old can be, looked up from her ice cream. "Does this mean we can all go to the fun beach together next time, Grandma?" The tension broke. Several people laughed, and I saw tears in Sandra's eyes. "I like that," she said softly. "If your mother would help me plan it." And there it was, the closest thing to an olive branch we'd ever get from Sandra Anderson. Later that night, after the girls were in bed, Mike and I sat on our back porch, processing the evening's events. "You know she's still going to try to control things," I said. Mike nodded. "Probably, but now she knows she can't exclude us without consequences. And maybe, just maybe, she'll learn that imperfect moments can be the most perfect of all." The next morning, a text arrived from Sandra. "Could we meet for coffee? Just us." I agreed, and 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from my mother-in-law at a local cafe. She looked different somehow, less rigid, more human. "I've been looking at your beach photos every day," she admitted. "Not because I'm angry, but because I see something in them I've been missing. Joy. Real, unscripted joy." She pulled out her phone, showing me a particular photo. Lucy mid-laugh, covered in sand, while Emma tried to bury her cousin's feet. Not a perfect photo by Sandra's usual standards, but absolutely perfect in its authenticity. "I want to learn," she said simply. "I want to be part of their lives, their real lives, not just the posed versions I've been trying to create." It wasn't a complete transformation. Sandra would always be Sandra. But it was a start, and sometimes that's all you need. A crack in the perfect facade, letting the real light shine through. The next family beach trip was already being planned, this time with everyone's input. And while Sandra still occasionally slipped into her old habits, she was trying. That's all any of us could ask for. Because in the end, family isn't about perfect photos or carefully orchestrated moments. It's about love, acceptance, and sometimes learning to let go of control to grab hold of something much more valuable, real connection. Emma and Lucy's seashell collection still sits on our mantle, each imperfect piece telling its own story of a vacation that changed everything. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real.